Welcome to Just Minding My Business Radio, where we are moving at the speed of God, learning what we didn't know we didn't know. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
So grab a pen and paper and get ready for information that you can use.
Welcome to Just Minding My Business Media, LLC. We sincerely hope that all is well in your world and that today you have found a reason as well as an opportunity to smile. How will you grow or start your business this year? Are you still thinking? Are you still trying? Walt Disney is quoted to have said, "The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing." Just Minding My Business Media is about the doing. Become known for your products or services on JMB Radio Podcast, heard in over 200 countries, or if you're ready to take the leap, move to Mindset Movers TV as a host or series producer, broadcasting to the combined audience of Roku and Fire TV. Let's move in the right direction together. Contact us at jmbbradio@gmail.com. A good objective of leadership is to help those who are doing poorly to do well, and to help those who are doing well to do even better. Jim Rohn. Today we welcome John Estafanous, who is the founder and CEO of RallyBright, a SaaS team development platform that helps business leaders improve team performance, dynamics, and inclusion. John helps business leaders build high-performing, inclusive teams. He works with executive teams and leaders of teams of all sizes and levels at organizations ranging from startups to unicorns to enterprise tech companies and household names in healthcare and media. He also partners with organizational people leaders interested in measuring inclusion and collaboration. As a repeat founder with extensive digital transformation, marketing, and operations experience, John leverages his executive leadership and technology background to build solutions that drive business impact and are easy to use. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, welcome. Beginnings. How did you get on this road?
How did I get on this road? Well, I like to joke that many years ago I made the mistake of going to law school, and upon graduating decided I wanted nothing to do with being a lawyer, and I preferred technology to law to some degree. So my first, or actually it was my second company, was started right after I graduated from law school. Throughout undergraduate and law school, I'd been building hospital management systems. So I'd had some experience developing software ever since I was a little kid. My brother and I would sneak down to the basement where the computer was, and we would program our own games. But the business world combined with the tech world really kind of took off then. So I had a .com idea. It was the summer of 2000, so the timing was absolutely perfect, meaning the crash was just about to come. And I started a .com, which turned into a marketing company and a software company. So that's a little bit of the origin story.
From a lawyer to marketing. It's
Yes,
funny
ma'am.
how things happen.
I believe they always happen for a reason, right?
Oh, they do, but it's like never the way we planned it.
Never. Yeah.
And yet that is part of the journey of life, and that's what makes it exciting. So what was exciting about when you discovered that you were going to hop on over into the marketing and leadership world?
Yeah, the software world and the marketing world. Well, I think what was most exciting was realizing that you can bring amazing people together and you can do amazing things. And it's like an exponential result as you bring teams together, as you bring people together and leverage their skills and leverage their creativity. You never know where you're going to end up. So I think from my perspective, what the most impactful thing behind what we did was pulled people together and had this idea that we were going to, change the world with software. And the best way to do that was to enable high impact marketing. But what I realized along the journey was the most impactful part of everything I was doing personally was building an amazing team. And that team actually stuck together for 6 years. And we went on our next journey together as well when we sold the company. So that's really what kind of drove me. And that's how we ended up in that world, so to speak.
Very interesting. Okay, so you built a successful team, which was sort of engineered your next step. So what is it? Let's start on the negative end for a second. What
Yeah.
is it that most people do not do in their business that doesn't allow them to create a successful team?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it seems so simple when you think about it, but when people only focus on things like the numbers or the metrics, and they lose focus on the people, or more importantly, they lose focus on the mission or the purpose of the business, and they don't align and pull their teams along a common purpose. That's where you start to see it happen. If you're just thinking about, oh, we need to hit our numbers so I can get my bonus, and I'm going to get everything I can out of my people, you're not, you may be successful for a quarter or two, maybe a little bit longer, but ultimately you're not building something that's sustainable and that's actually poised for growth. So I think that's one of the things, at least that I've seen, is that it's a short-term focus on the things that matter only to people outside of the business, candidly, or higher ups outside of the team. When you think about what matters to the environment that you're creating and the people that you're working with, and you think a little bit longer term, how do I develop amazing people? How do I help them develop their skills? How do I make sure we're working well together? How do I make sure that we're all marching towards the same goal? That's where the real magic happens, and long term that delivers the most success from at least my experience and what we've seen kind of play out.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly. You hire people because they have certain skills,
Absolutely.
supposedly. And then a lot of times this ego thing
Yeah.
kicks in. I'm the boss, I'm this, I'm that, not realizing you need your team.
Yeah. No person's an island.
Exactly. And I hate companies like that. Honestly, I hate them because I feel like you should always have an environment where creativity is a part of it,
Absolutely.
because we don't all know everything. We don't all see everything. And that old saying goes, when you look in the mirror, you can only see one side at a time at any
Absolutely.
given time.
I like that.
So that team effort is critical for any business. For any business. Now, my question to you, how do you build a good high performing team? Because I know a lot of companies don't have good teams.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, obviously, because that's what we built RallyBright around, is how do you actually empower organizations to build high-power teams? I mean, at the end of the day, I like to say it's not rocket science, it's based on logic, but that logic is backed up by academic research as well as practical research. And like anything, you need a framework. You need a framework to be able to follow. And what we've identified is that there are 5 core dimensions to developing a high performing team. 2 of those are focused on driving team engagement and team dynamics, and 3 of them are focused on driving team impact. So we actually break out 5 core dimensions. The first one is connection. That's all about having psychological safety and trust on the team, and making sure that we're communicating effectively, and that if there's conflict on the team, we're handling that in a constructive way. The second dimension is attitude. That's all about how do we drive shared optimism and a competitive spirit and a growth mindset. Make sure that we're all learning and growing from all of the challenges that we face together. So those first 2 dimensions, just as an example, that's how we measure team engagement. So what we do is we look at the behaviors behind those, like what drives psychological safety. How do we actually measure optimism on the team? How do we encourage a growth mindset? And being able to look at the behaviors behind those, or the characteristics that drive those core qualities. That's one way of getting started, is you have your dimensions within this framework. You have the behaviors, the characteristics that drive those dimensions, and then you measure them and you quantify them, and then you track them over time, and you support them and you grow them. Just as a quick overview, that's how we do it. The other 3 dimensions, by the way, direction is all about that shared purpose we talked about. We have alignment, which is your team's outside in focus, and then performance, which is all about shared accountability and commitment and accountability to one another as a team, and a bias for action. Let's get done the things we say we're going to get done.
I like that.
Now, I have a question because I think you hit the second one. You were talking about safety.
Oh, yeah, psychological safety. Yes.
Psychological safety. Could you expound on that? Because I think that that may be something that many people, that's where it falls apart.
Yeah,
People say
absolutely.
one thing, they do something else, and the person who's observing on the team suddenly is like, not
Yeah.
trusting this.
Absolutely. Psychological safety has actually been found through research to be one of the most critical factors to driving high performing teams. So you can look at the work of Amy Edmondson, who wrote The Fearless Organization. She's out of Harvard. And then Google actually picked that work up around psychological safety. And it was part of a really big study they did called Project Aristotle, with thousands of teams within Google. And within Google, they found that psychological safety was the most important factor to driving high performance teams. So what does it mean? Within our definition, we define psychological safety as the freedom for individuals to show up authentically, to fearlessly speak up, contribute, and make mistakes. So are you encouraged to experiment? Are people going to hold that against you if you fail? Those types of things. It's also very important not only to team performance, but also to driving inclusion within teams and organizations. If you're not feeling safe, you're not going to feel included. And if you're not feeling included, you're not going to feel like you belong. And if you don't feel like you belong and that you're not safe, you're not going to stick around within an organization, and you're not going to be happy there. And in fact, we found that psychological safety and belonging together to drive inclusion is actually a predictor of what we call turnover intent. So people that feel safe and as if they belong, as though they belong, and they know that they belong with an organization, are 10 times less likely to leave an organization. And that is something that I think every organization is struggling with. So you hit it right on the head. Psychological safety is critical to keeping people engaged and to actually keeping them around.
Yeah, and the pandemic right now is definitely gave people an opportunity to really think about the job and the value. People's values have changed.
Oh, yes.
There's so much death happening around us, and being on this lockdown gave everybody an opportunity to really think about what matters.
Yeah.
And yes, and I agree with you, whole. I have been in companies that, I make a suggestion and I was made to feel like it wasn't valuable.
Yeah.
But after that happened, it's like you're reluctant to say anything else. You just kind of do what you have to do, and then you go home.
Yeah.
There's no, you don't go home and think about, I could have did this, and maybe tomorrow I'll tell them about this bright idea I had.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You don't have that feeling.
Absolutely. And think about what organizations are leaving on the table if they're not providing people with that platform and that ability and that freedom, right? Like to actually come in and show up as who they are. It's interesting because a lot of organizations over the past 2 years have also started to talk more and more about diversity, right? How do we create more diverse workforces? How do we increase our diversity within our organization? And you can measure it in so many different ways, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't have inclusion, if you bring in the most diverse team and the people don't feel included and safe to speak up, then you're not accomplishing anything other than checking a box.
Absolutely.
And that's something that we found absolutely critical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I thank you for saying that, checking the box, because that is what a lot of people have gone to. They figured that, even if you look at applications, there are all these different extra boxes now. Mm-hmm. And they feel that if they can get so many people in and they can check off that box, that's going to make them inclusive. But it doesn't necessarily do that. And the reality is that it works against the company's growth, because you're paying people that you really don't want there. That's the feeling that they're going to have.
And they're not going to stick around, and you're going to go through the same cycles over and over again. We've seen it happen with lots of teams, candidly, and lots of organizations where they feel like they have to do certain things, and they should, and they're doing them for the right reasons. But if you don't create the right environments, and it applies to, performance as well as internal relationships as well as inclusion, right? It all intertwines with one another, and that's one of the reasons we created RallyBright is how do you empower managers to become the best leaders possible, and how do you give them the power to build these better teams and the framework to actually go in and measure, all of the factors we've been talking about, to diagnose the behaviors that are working and the ones that they're challenged with. And then you give them a roadmap to say, here's what you should focus on in order to drive this improved performance or inclusiveness or collaboration or team dynamics. And once you start to realize it's great to bring all of this together, but you actually have to activate it based on the unique circumstances of the teams and the organization that you're creating to maximize it. Because even if you're great, even if you're a high performing team, if you have these friction areas, imagine what you're leaving on the table and how great it could be. Just like Ida mentioned, like if you've got these great, maybe you're a great team, maybe you're a great sales team and you're hitting your numbers left and right. But if your people aren't safe enough, aren't feeling safe enough to contribute more of those brilliant ideas, think about what you're leaving on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
There may be $1 million idea that never gets spoken, and they leave and take it to another company.
Or they do what I did and they just start another company.
Right.
That's also one of the things that's come out of the pandemic. A lot of people have done exactly that. They said, "Oh, I've had all these great ideas. I've been ignored. Let me see what happens if I do it myself."
Right.
So I have a question. When it comes to leadership, the ones you're talking about a team, but even in a team, there has to be a leader. There has to be a coach. There has to be somebody in charge, so to speak. What are the things that people in those positions do most often that will hinder the results that they're searching for, that will actually break apart or tear down their team?
Yeah, I would say beyond what we've already talked about in terms of creating a supportive environment for, communication and psychological safety and, driving a lot of the engagement things we talked about, I would say it's not providing clear purpose and direction, and then not communicating what that is clearly, frequently, authentically, and reinforcing that consistently. So when we look at leadership, and we kind of look at leadership teams, so to speak, the two qualities we look at the most are, number one is direction. Do we drive a shared purpose and vision within this team or within this organization? And do those align with our values? And do our behaviors align with our values that we're setting forth along this clear purpose and vision? So that's the first dimension. The second thing we look at is that attitude as a leader. Do you have that optimism, right? And can you share that with others? Because no matter what's happening, one of your core jobs as a leader is to be the biggest cheerleader for your company, for your team, and for your people, right? We've all stared in the abyss and said, okay, that's interesting. How are we going to get across it, right? That's your job as the leader. So there's that competitive spirit, that positive competitive spirit. And then there's also that lack of ego around having that growth mindset is, how do I learn and grow? Like, we're going to get thrown, curveballs every day. I started this company, 5 years ago. And the thought then was, we're living in a world of constant disruption, right? And the workforce is changing. I was like, oh, there's this thing called remote teams and matrix teams. We all know what that is now. But 4 or 5 years ago, that, we've seen some disruption, right? Yeah. So if you can't learn and grow from it, and stay optimistic and stay on target in terms of what that vision and purpose is, then you're going to struggle a little bit as a leader. And I think that's really, really important to continue to reinforce. It's not easy. It's not necessarily always simple, but it should be. It should be inspiring to both you and your team to have that one goal, that one purpose that you're trying to accomplish. So for us, we want to make work better for everybody. That's a big, big goal, right? Yes. But we realize we have to have a path to that. And from our perspective at RallyBright, our path is we can get there if we can help managers become better leaders and build better teams. Because that's one to many and then to many more, right?
On that same note, okay, we're dealing with personalities.
Mm-hmm.
So when you walk into a company and a company hires you,
Hmm.
first of all, I'm sure that you're looking at the leader in terms of what type of attitude and what they're projecting. So, with that being said, if they're projecting something that is going to hinder them from getting what's needed from their team, how do you address that?
That's a great question. We can talk about personalities in a little more detail too, because we have a whole psychometric, behavioral assessment component to the platform. But how do we do it when we're looking at specific leaders? One of our core tenets within RallyBright is we make sure that when we're doing our diagnostic, when we're going into an organization and we're bringing a team together to pull their feedback and their knowledge and their behaviors together, we make sure it's not about an individual. So when we start and we benchmark a team, we're very clear, because it really isn't. This isn't about you, this isn't about your peers, and it's not about your leader. It's about how the team as a whole operates.
Mm-hmm.
So you depersonalize it a little bit, so that way you can get the raw data, that authentic data, and you look at the behavioral profile of the team versus the individuals. Now, of course, leaders influence how teams behave.
Yes.
And they influence the feelings of the contributors on the teams, the leaders and the managers, right? But when you start thinking collectively about how do we operate as a group versus how do we operate as somebody who reports to somebody else, you get more of the insights around the organization, and that depersonalizes it for the leader as well. So they can objectively say, like, hey, our team doesn't communicate well. That's not just me. That's how the team perceives it as a whole. Or we have a hard time getting a feedback loop going with our stakeholders. Well, now I know this is something we're all struggling with, and I can start doing what a servant leader should do, or what a good leader should do, is to remove obstacles and coach my team on how to address these issues.
Okay, and it sounds beautiful, but in reality, if a company has been the opposite of that
Mm-hmm.
for X amount of years, I'm sure there's some pushback, resistance, I should say.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's not something that takes time to cultivate within the organization. And unfortunately, it's not about the people, but it is about the people.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there is an opportunity to somewhat depersonalize it and then start looking for themes across an organization. So, like, I can go back. I mean, we've worked with hundreds and hundreds of teams at some of the biggest names of companies you've heard of. And if I kind of go back into my database in the back of my mind, I think about, okay, where have we had some of those issues, where there have been legacy issues within an organization.
Mm-hmm.
If we can objectively, through data, show we have these systemic issues, not just within one team, not just within two teams, but within a dozen teams, and I can look at my organization as a whole, then we begin to surface some of the things that we can work on collectively and that leaders can start taking action on individually with their working groups. So that's one of the ways we've dealt with that in the past. Other ways is, we have the ability to map performance against values of an organization, and if people aren't living the values of an organization, we can identify where they're strong or where they're falling short. And candidly, if an organization isn't willing to objectively look at what their opportunities are for growth and the strength of their values, then I'm not sure we can help them, or if anybody can.
Yeah, that's true. You have to be
I
open,
mean,
to change, and it's just a lot of variables, with
absolutely.
people. It's like that old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
But what I will say is we've worked with some incredible leaders that have had problems or have had struggles for a long time, and we've helped them surface some of the behaviors and characteristics that are systemic to their organization and that are showing up on their teams. And we've seen incredible results, right? We've seen lowered attrition. We've seen higher sales. We've seen better margins for engineering teams. We've seen We've seen, where a leader can get in sync with their team and actually show them what they're trying to accomplish 2 steps down the road versus just submitting code. Better code, less errors, higher customer satisfaction, more frequent releases, sales teams, higher quotas, all those kinds of great kind of metrics. It's all about understanding what should I focus on? Like, what are my strengths that I protect and that I support? And what are the opportunities I have that are either mine and unique to my team or across the organization that we can start to address?
I think this is really an interesting conversation. And in the back of my mind, that little data bank that I have, I'm thinking of a particular company that actually went down the tubes because they could not do this, what you're talking about. They used to have fabulous team effort. In fact, that's what they were known for. They were known as a company that when you were hired, you became part of a team.
Yeah.
That was the whole concept. And then economics came into it.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember what exactly, there was something that happened. And all of a sudden, all of their values that they had held for many, many years went down the tubes. And they were never able to recover from it.
Yeah.
So this is, I'm hoping that in our listening audience, there are those who are working with companies who they see this problem in, and that they'll get in contact with you, because this is really important to the economy now.
Absolutely.
We are going past the age of huge corporations and everybody's running towards the corporations. It's almost as if we're coming around another curve and learning how to do business in a different way.
Absolutely.
But if we don't build those businesses on a team effort, a team that is functioning with the same values, not weeding out, but understanding whatever problems are there, the economy is still going to be shaky. Okay. People need this information. So I hope amongst our listening audience that they hear this, they get your name, they get your company name, and all that good information, and take it back with them or take it into their own company. Because this is really actually critical information.
Yes,
we don't do business the way we did it 20 years ago, and certainly not 50 years ago. And the pandemic has changed even what we did 5 years ago.
Absolutely. So if people want to get in touch with you for your services, how do they do so?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they can come to our website at www.rallybright.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at JestoDC, JESTODC, or find us on LinkedIn, RallyBright, RALLYBRIGHT.
Okay, and the name of your company, how did you come up with that name? I like it. It makes me feel happy.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. Thank you. It was, I mean, we found a good URL. No, realistically, we wanted something that focused around resilience and optimism. So when you think about resilience, the ability to engage with diversity and to rebound from adversity and sustain your performance and learn and grow, we thought about rallying. How do you rally your troops? How do you rally your team? How do you pull everybody together for what's next? And then bright, I mean, optimism, right? Like you want to think about the good in the world and the good that you can create and making work better for everybody. So those two came together and RallyBright is the name. Yeah.
I like it. I like it. Wow. And it's like, I'm a very we person. I love collaboration. I feel like collaboration is the most important part of a company, because no one person knows everything. No one person can think of everything. It's just, to me, it has my adrenaline flowing when I'm able to collaborate with people and we're talking about a project, and it's like, oh wow, that's a great idea, and it's like I get all excited. And I think that's the meat of the company, is to create excitement, because you want, as a leader, you want people to follow you because they want to, not because they have to.
Absolutely.
And oh wow, this is really on time, John, you being here, because I think with people having problems hiring people, they thought that the what is it, the unemployment extra check was the problem, but it wasn't the problem. It's how companies treat the help.
Yes. Yeah.
People want to be treated like they're human and they have value. And when, like Ida said, during the pandemic, people had a chance to sit down and think, oh, wait a minute, I don't like the way I'm treated. I don't feel valued. And so they decided to do something on their own. And even companies who are offering, I know there were big companies offering huge amounts of hiring bonuses, $30,000, and people were not biting.
Yeah.
Which says something. That says a lot.
Yeah, and the purpose. I mean, we could show you statistics around how much people value having a purpose in the work that they're going to do.
Yes.
It's absolutely critical. Yeah, it's a fascinating time for sure. And I think what organizations are learning and what leaders are learning is building teams and creating that inclusive environment, and being collaborative is absolutely critical. That's kind of what we need to do, and inclusion is how we need to do it. Is absolutely critical to not only keeping the people that you have, but bringing other people into the fold.
I tell you what, our White House needs you bad. It's like, we have to learn how to disagree. We don't know how to disagree. We don't know how to, we're too busy arguing and we're not getting anything done. Yeah. And you're causing the people that are watching you are looking at you in frustration.
Yeah. Well, you raise another great point. You mentioned personalities earlier. We do a lot of, like, as well as looking at teams as their own personalities, we have tools within our platform for individual personalities. So we have like a DISC profile. We have a conflict style profile, looking and speaking exactly to what you're talking about. We have to learn how to disagree. And we're firm believers that if you have constructive conflict, it can help drive innovation, creativity, new ways of problem solving. But it has to be constructive. You can't make it personal, right, and you can't damage your relationships, right? And when you do that, it's a key driver to making an organizational successful. And that's, once again, if you can do so in an inclusive way with a diverse team, it's the opportunities are endless, because you have all the perspectives, you have all the respect, you have all the safety of people kind of bringing their real selves and their real ideas to the table. Imagine what you can create when you drive constructive conflict in an inclusive environment with clear direction.
Yes. Wow.
Seems simple, right?
It does seem so simple, but you know that saying, easy to do and easy not to do.
Yeah. Bring personalities into it, and you have a whole different soup.
Yes. Oh, yeah. But you gotta want that. I think a lot of times egos, gets in the way of production. And really, how much does it cost to be nice, for real?
Shouldn't cost a thing.
Also, there's just that whole issue that sometimes we come into any situation and we forget that we're bringing all of us into that situation. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we need to step back and we need someone to say, well, this particular facet of your personality or the way that you handle things is affecting everything that you are trying to do. So I'm thinking that even within your program, there has to be a point where each individual has to sit down and really do some self-assessment. Oh, yeah. Because we bring all of ourselves into a situation.
Yes.
And that can really mess things up if we're not aware of ourselves and not willing to do the work to change.
1,000%. You said it right on the spot. We have to be aware of ourselves. It starts with that self-awareness.
Yes.
Right? Like, I'll tell you, when I ran my personality profiles, I was like, Wow, John, you seem kind of aggressive, and when we ran our inclusive collaboration kind of toolkit on our own team, I was like, oh, here's some areas we need to work on. And it starts with self-awareness, but you have to be open and you have to feel as if it's okay to be open and to surface these things transparently and authentically with your team and with your organization. You can have 10 people working together and they may not be a team. They may be a working group. They may just report to the same person, but they're not working as a team. In some cases, that may be okay, but you're also leaving things on the table. So it's important, I think, that self-awareness, not only for the individuals, but for the teams and then also for the organization. That's how you drive change.
Yes. Yes, I agree. I always say every day I have to go outside myself and look in, because it's easy to develop bad habits. They kind of like just jump on you without you even knowing. But to be better than you were yesterday is a harder job.
1,000%. Love it.
It's much harder, and it requires you being conscious and intentional about the way you want to show up and how you want people to perceive you, and work with you. I mean, I work in the IT. I've been in the IT business for over 25 years, and I've got people that I call users from hell. But then I've got people who, they want to bake me a cake because I fixed something for them, or they want to bake me a pie because they have gratitude.
Yes.
When you do something to help them, it's that gratitude comes out. And then others, it's like, you should have did it this way, or you should have been, why'd it take so long? They always have some type of complaint, let's put it that way.
Right.
So I definitely, in working with those type of different people, I'm patient. I'm very patient. This field makes you patient because you're dealing with people that don't understand technology. And then everything, when they tell you something's wrong, you have to figure it out, so to speak, because
you have to interpret it.
Yeah, you have to do an interpretation, because they'll just say, my computer won't come on. Okay, well, when is it plugged in?
Exactly. From our perspective, what you're talking about is empathy, right? Like, how do you put yourself in somebody else's shoes? And what maybe some of the more problematic users or the challenging users that you're talking about, they may not have that empathy because they can't put themselves in your shoes because they don't even understand what it's like to have to function that way. So it's interesting, what we look at with a lot of this. You said gratitude. We also look at compassion, which is empathy and support. Like, am I empathetic? And then can I support people through that empathy? Yeah. So you're talking about doing both as a function. We're just asking for people to do the first part, just to understand what they're asking for.
Wow, this is a very interesting conversation.
It is.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
When I looked at it, I was like, okay, I don't know anything about this. How is this going to go? But it's, this is, in some ways, it's basic human knowledge, but somehow we have let go of it in the interest of, like you said at the beginning, the bottom line, all of that. Yeah. So this is an eye opener. Yeah. It's an eye opener, and it is a platform to work with. I mean, this is a different way of looking at business and how we work with people. And I really do appreciate that you spent time with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
You talk to us about your business, what it does, how you go about it, and how it can benefit companies that are, like I know you said startups, or people who are unicorns, or people who have been in business for 100 years, it seems, but need to change the dynamics of their company so that they can continue to grow in this new age of business. Yeah. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And again, how do people reach out to you? How do companies connect and get started with you?
Sure. Easiest way is to just send an email to me at john@rallybright.com, john@rallybright.com, or hello@rallybright.com. Go to our website, find us on LinkedIn, or find me on Twitter at JestoDC, JESTODC.
Yes. I'm just loving this. This is like going back to really brass tacks, really getting people to think.
Yeah.
I mean, and like this is all basic stuff. You want people, you want to treat people like you want to be treated. Yeah. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that we believe is yes, it's absolutely basic, but a lot of people, they can think they know what they're doing, and they can think about, how do you keep that drumbeat going where you're measuring it consistently? Because if you can measure the basic things, we like to say we help you measure some of the soft things that you know what to do, and how to do them. But if you measure them, you're going to stay on top of them. And that's measure, diagnose, and improve. That's really where we drive our value.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, John. We are definitely highly appreciative of this conversation. And we hope our listeners are paying attention. And if there's some bosses out there, you definitely need to reach out to John if you're having issues on your team, because he's going to help you get on track. And, the bottom line is what your thoughts are, then create that team so that you can consistently reach your bottom line.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much, John. You will be
back.
You both. I think people need to hear this a lot.
Yeah.
As you know how we are as humans. It's like we got to hear it over and over and over again before the actual bells go off. So we appreciate you, and definitely stop by again.
Thank you. I'd love to be back. I really enjoyed this. Thank you both very, very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your business, through Just Minding My Business Media, has exposure on internet radio, major social media platforms, and now TV. Through Just Minding My Business, dynamic digital marketing platform. Don't listen to the word on the street. Hear it for yourself. Visit jmmb.assistacircle.org to learn how you can take your business, your vision, to the next level. Voiceovers by RCH VoiceWorks, for when you want to be heard. Call 443-620-4115.
Thank you for tuning in to Just Minding My Business Radio. I'm your host, Ida Crawford.
And I'm your co-host, Ruth Haskins.
We hope you enjoyed the show and appreciate you stopping by. Many blessings to you and yours.